afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you are tuning in. This is Unapologetically Me, featuring me. No special guest, just me. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you find something educational about it. Also, for my current subscribers, thank you guys so much for continuing to watch my videos and be supportive and comment and liking and all of that. I really do appreciate all of you. So we're going to go right into part 2. So if you have not already watched part 1, please go ahead and do so that you are familiar with where we're at up until this point. This video is going to be going into what happened that day. Again, trigger warning, I'll say it now. I'm not going to repeat it throughout the video. So where we left off in part 1, we were talking about how Tommy was just trying to ruin Taylor's life. He had been sending text messages to Wade. He had also been screenshotting those text messages and sending them to Taylor to kind of show her like, hey, I'm talking to your man. Like, he knows everything about you. Just give up your bullshit story. He also talked about the hospitals being on high alert, right? And they were aware that there was a woman out there faking a pregnancy and that she could possibly attempt to abduct a baby from their hospitals. They were aware of her. Understandably, Taylor was extremely stressed out by all of this. So she reached out to a friend of hers. Well, more of an acquaintance, I suppose. A woman by the name of Reagan Hancock. Another career that Taylor had listed on her Facebook account was an amateur photographer. She had taken some photos of Reagan and her husband at their wedding a year prior. Taylor and Reagan had then become Facebook friends, and because of that, they stayed in contact, and Reagan was now pregnant with her second baby. So they were kind of like pregnancy buddies, acquaintances, sharing things here and there about their pregnancies. And much like Taylor's story, Reagan had a daughter from her ex and was now pregnant with her current husband's baby. Her husband was an amazing father to her first daughter, Kinley, and this baby was just going to add to their happy family. They were so excited to be soon welcoming their second daughter, whom they had already picked out a name, Braxlynn Sage. So Taylor had taken a baby gift over to Reagan's house, and they continued after that to text back and forth over the following week or so. It was just what Taylor needed to be able to relax and focus on her baby being born and enjoying the last few weeks of pregnancy with someone else who was going through the exact same thing. On September 22nd, Taylor reached out to a man about selling a trailer filled with hogs, about $6,000 worth. Taylor didn't seem to know anything about the laws regarding such an exchange, so the man thought that this was either a joke or a scam, and he told her that he was not interested. On September 27th, the day before her due date, Taylor reached back out to the man and told him that she had everything figured out in regards to licensing and the transfer, but still, he refused. I know what you're thinking. What the hell is she up to now, right? Is it about the $6,000? Why is she trying to force a sale of hogs on a guy the day before she's about to give birth? She's now 2 days past her due date, and it's September 30th. And Taylor went to her scheduled OB appointment. But when she got there, she started hysterically crying. When employees ran to check on her, she told them she needed to reschedule because her husband was in the military and that he had just died. And her mother had also canceled on her. Of course, they agreed to cancel the appointment and reschedule it, but they offered her an ultrasound to help cheer her up. She declined the ultrasound and her appointment was rescheduled for the following day. Her denying the ultrasound was a bit suspicious to the staff because usually moms are ecstatic to get ultrasounds. Also, even more odd to the staff, Taylor didn't just leave. She actually sat outside of the clinic on a park bench for quite a long time, just watching pregnant patients coming in and out of the clinic. October 5th rolls around, and Taylor's a little over a week now past her due date. It actually turned out not to be such a bad thing in Taylor and Wade's case because Wade's house caught on fire. And this fire was determined later on to be intentional and considered an act of arson, but no one had any idea who would have started this fire. I think we have an idea. So unable to use their home in its entirety, Wade and Taylor go over to Connie's house so that they can shower. Wade's mom. While Wade is in the shower, Taylor told Connie that she was scheduled to be induced today, but she had to cancel because of a bomb threat that had been called in, where 100 patients needed to be evacuated and all inductions and other scheduled procedures needed to be canceled and rescheduled. And that was in fact real, that had happened. Connie could have cared less. All she said was, yeah, and you probably called it in. She then asked Taylor to take a look at a photo that she had pulled up on her phone off of Facebook. The photo was Taylor's real mother, alive and well, with Taylor's 2 children living in Colorado. She said to Taylor, I see your mom has the kids and they're having a great time in Colorado. Taylor doesn't even have a chance to respond because Wade comes out of the shower and Taylor quickly goes to the bathroom for her turn. While Taylor's in the shower, Connie took her chance once again to try to talk some sense into Wade. Wade had taken a leave of absence at work 2 weeks prior when Taylor's actual due date was scheduled. And Connie was worried that Wade was going to end up losing his job if he didn't go back to work, and it turned out that there was never a baby to begin with. She told him, Wade, she's not pregnant. She had a hysterectomy when Trey was born, and he is 5 years old now. She cannot get pregnant. Wade did not take that well. He stormed out of the house, and when Taylor finished her shower, they left. Wade was furious. How dare his mother question not only his child, but his own judgment? He knew Taylor was pregnant, and he was done letting his mother talk such nonsense. October 8th, Taylor went over to Reagan's house. She sat outside in the driveway for a bit. She then drove away. Shortly after, she drove back to Reagan's house, this time with a baby gift and Starbucks. They hung out for a while and Taylor left around 10 p.m. After leaving, Reagan posted onto Facebook about their night together, tagging Taylor in the post and thanking her for the gifts. Taylor replied to that, saying that she couldn't wait to see baby Braxlynn in the outfit that she had bought for her. Taylor was scheduled for induction on the very next day. October 9th, Taylor sent Wade off with that trailer full of hogs to sell them to the buyer that she had previously talked to. The plan was for Wade to come to the hospital once that sale was complete. But wait, didn't that buyer say he wasn't interested? Did he change his mind? Was Taylor able to convince him that she was in fact legit and that they did in fact have these hogs for purchase? Because Wade had text messages from a man by the name of Scott agreeing to purchase 150 hogs for $6,100. The text message even confirmed the night before, complete with adding that the check be made payable to Wade Griffin. So about 7:45 a.m., Wade shows up to the buyer's ranch in Oklahoma after driving for almost 4 hours. 6:46 a.m., Taylor got $10 of gas at the local Easy Mart and stopped at McDonald's. Then, just after 9:30 a.m., Taylor got pulled over in DeKalb County, Texas, after an officer noticed her driving fast and erratically. While the state trooper was behind her, Taylor called 911. Taylor told the 911 dispatcher, I have a state trooper behind me. I need an ambulance because I started having my baby. Dispatch asked her where she was, and Taylor said she was trying to get to Idabel, Oklahoma, saying, that's where my doctor is. I started having my baby and I have to get there. Idabel is about 45 minutes from DeKalb, Texas, where Taylor was stopped. And when the state trooper walked up to the window, he was absolutely shocked to see a newborn baby in obvious distress and an umbilical cord coming from the woman's pants. An off-duty nurse also stopped to help perform CPR on the baby, and they cut off Taylor's yoga pants. While cutting off the yoga pants, the placenta fell out. They helped Taylor change into some pajama pants. Taylor had blood on her legs, hands, face, and her shoes, clothes, and feet. And most of the blood was dry, and there was no blood on the driver's seat, which the state trooper did find to be extremely odd. But he knew he couldn't worry about that. He had to get this baby to a hospital. Taylor could be heard hysterical in the background while the state trooper was talking to dispatch, saying, we got to get to Idabel. That's where my doctor is. I'm not going to St. Michael's. The trooper asked Taylor, how old is the baby? And Taylor responds, like maybe 35 minutes old. Now, this is a male officer, and he even found that response to be a bit odd, as did I, because usually after you have a baby and someone says, how old is your baby? I mean, I suppose you could say 5 minutes old, but I think women who have just been pregnant for 40 plus weeks, you would say 41 weeks. Right? I mean, you're pregnant. So every time someone asks you, how far along are you? You go by weeks. So the fact that she said 35 minutes old, to me, is a red flag. And it was to the state trooper as well as the nurse. At this point, CPR is still being performed on the baby, and Taylor's in the background saying, come on, Clancy, come on, begging the officer to put them in his car and take them to Idabel, saying that the doctor that she had been seeing was a holistic midwife in Oklahoma. The nurse gave Taylor a paper towel to wipe her face and hands, as Taylor explained that she had been at a Walmart in New Boston, Texas when she felt pressure. So she left to head towards her doctor. And while she was driving, she felt this urge to push, and the baby just came out while she was driving. Well, that's one of the most amazing deliveries ever. I mean, imagine you're driving a car with your pants on, you give birth, still able to keep driving, and you're able to get the baby up and out of your pants, but leave the placenta and everything else there and continue to drive while giving the baby CPR. Interesting. She also told the nurse that she was due September 30th, and this did not make sense to this ER nurse at all, considering how tiny this baby was. I mean, if she was 2 weeks overdue, this baby would probably be, in my opinion, at least 10 pounds. Also, I don't know about you guys, but they usually don't let you go 2 weeks after your due date. Do they? Do they? I thought it was only 1 week. I mean, I guess if you're with a holistic midwife, they do try to wait. I know they want nature to take its course, but it just seems weird to me reaching the 2-week mark and nobody seems to be concerned for her health and safety or her babies, because the risk issues of going past 40 weeks for both mom and baby are not good. But anyway, I don't get anything about this case, so I'm not even going to try to figure out what she was thinking. We all know where this is going at this point. On the way to the hospital, Taylor calls Wade, and she lets him know what just happened. But Wade was nowhere near ready for this call because he was still at the ranch trying to unload 150 hogs. The man, Scott, was telling Wade that he had no idea what the hell he was even doing there. He did not ask for these hogs. He did not want them. And Wade was super confused because he had received a text from Scott the night before confirming for today, saying he was ready to buy these hogs. So Wade pulls up the text messages from Scott and shows them to him. And Scott says, that's not me. That's not even my phone number. So after this, something clicks for Scott, and he sees the text, which states that the check is to be made out to Wade Griffin. He recognizes the last name of Griffin and remembers Taylor. And then he tells Wade that he had already spoke to them and told them that they didn't have the proper licenses required and that he wanted nothing to do with them or their hogs. Wade just wanted to unload these hogs at this point so that he could get to the hospital to see his daughter born. So eventually they do end up making a deal, and Scott takes all 150 hogs for just $2,500. Finally, between 9:30 and 10 a.m., Wade is able to leave the ranch with an empty trailer, and he has not yet a clue what has been going on with Taylor, and no one could have ever imagined it either. Earlier that morning at around 7:22 a.m., after Taylor had gotten her gas in McDonald's, Reagan received a text from a Google app number. She then got another text at 7:49 a.m., and she responded at 7:52 a.m. At 8:30 a.m., Reagan's husband, Homer, received a series of texts that were very weird and completely unlike Reagan at all from Reagan's phone. These texts were saying things like how she just wants to be happy and it's just not working, and they text back and forth for a bit, but Homer's growing extremely suspicious and more concerned because Reagan isn't sounding at all like herself. At 8:33 a.m., Homer texted Reagan, "I love you." Reagan never responds. At 9:34 a.m., Homer gets another strange message, this time from Facebook Messenger. It's from his neighbor, and the message said that their little black lab puppy was running loose outside. When Homer asked, "What do you mean?" the neighbor told him that the garage door was wide open and the puppy was running around their yard. Now, I can only assume the feeling of dread that Homer felt at that moment, knowing that Reagan and he never left that garage door open. It was actually their thing. Like it was never left up. And they also had a fenced in backyard and never let the puppy out anywhere but the backyard. So I can just imagine that drop in his stomach where he's getting these odd text messages from her talking almost like she wants to break up with him or leave or run away. And now the dog's out running loose. Like, what is going on? So at this point, Homer starts calling their close family and friends and asking if they've heard from Reagan at all and if anyone can just go check on her. He also starts blowing up Reagan's phone. He calls Reagan at 9:58 a.m., 10:02 a.m., 10:04 a.m., 10:06 a.m., and then again at 10:20 a.m. He gets no answer. The neighbor puts the puppy over the fence in the backyard and she leaves to go run errands. And I questioned why the neighbor didn't go knock on the door. She texted the husband or messaged the husband on Facebook, "Why didn't you go knock on the door and say, 'Hey Reagan, here's your dog,' or, I don't know how close they were. Of course, I made a note of that only because I'm always suspicious of everything, but maybe they just weren't that close. But Reagan's 35 weeks pregnant. The dog's running around outside. No one can get a hold of Reagan. She was sending weird texts. I feel like the very least, I would be concerned that she's having some sort of medical issue due to being pregnant. She's in the last few weeks of pregnancy. Preeclampsia comes to mind, strokes, undoubtedly murder was not on their mind, and it wouldn't have been on my mind either. At 10:46 a.m., Reagan's mother, Jessica, and husband, Marcus, arrive at Reagan's home. Jessica was the first to walk in. Nothing on the face of the earth could have ever prepared her for the horrific and macabre scene that was laid out right in front of her. She saw her 35-week pregnant daughter lying face down in a pool of blood. She immediately calls 911 and she says, "Help me, my daughter's been murdered. There's blood everywhere. Oh my babies. Oh my God." On the 911 call, you can hear Jessica calling out to her husband, Marcus. "Did they hurt her? I don't know. I can't do this. My baby, my baby, my baby." She then asks if Kinley was okay and proceeds to say, "What did they do to her? There's so much blood. There's so much blood." Marcus found Kinley in the other room, hiding under a blanket, clearly traumatized. 3 minutes into the 911 call, you can actually hear Kinley ask, "Where's mommy?" Police soon arrive, and as they turn Reagan over, they bring to light a gruesome discovery. Reagan's baby was missing. She had been cut open hip to hip and had multiple stab wounds, as well as defensive wounds, all over her hands and arms. Her uterus had been completely taken out and cut open. There was a bloody handprint on the refrigerator right underneath ultrasound photos. There was also a child's bathing suit, which I assume to be Kinley's, that was just soaked with blood on the living room floor. There was also a urine-soaked diaper on the top of a pool of blood on the couch. Blood and what appeared to be clumps of Reagan's hair were also on the edge of the couch, as if she were laying against it for part of this brutal attack. There was also a blanket that was soaked in blood and what would appear to be amniotic fluid on the floor. Reagan also had an indentation mark on her forehead that matched a glass mason jar that held their wedding unity sand, which lie broken on the floor. Over by the door, more bloody handprints, along with more clumps of hair, suggesting Reagan was pushed up against the wall and sliding towards the door, down towards the floor. The wall by where Reagan was found was splattered with blood in every direction. Some was even dripping down from the walls. This was truly a scene out of a horror movie. Police also found watery bloodstains along the hallway leading to the bathroom, suggesting that something bloody had been washed off. They also noticed one white crock that was left behind. At this point, Homer is just arriving. He sees the yellow caution tape as well as Kinley in the driveway. He's informed by officers that he cannot go inside, and he's told his wife is dead and that his baby is missing. At 10:33, Homer calls his neighbor, the same woman that messaged him about the dog, and he told her his wife was dead. While Reagan's family was in absolute shock about her death and mourning their loss, the hospital across town was trying to figure out what in the hell happened to Taylor, who just gave birth in her car. Taylor was very adamant about not having an exam, but when they did examine her internally, they found that she didn't have a cervix. Also, they noted that she was not bleeding the way a woman who has just given birth would be bleeding. So they give her an ultrasound, and on that ultrasound, they show nothing there. Not only does it look like she just gave birth, but there's nothing there. There's no uterus. There's nothing. So they also did a blood test, and they found out that she had 0 pregnancy hormone, but yet she was still insistent that she had delivered that baby girl. 1 p.m., local police were notified of a murder and a kidnapped baby. At 1:22 p.m., the baby girl that Taylor claimed to have delivered was taken off life support and pronounced dead. The doctor said that the baby would have been viable, but she had suffered a lack of oxygen for way too long. Police connected everything, and they went to the hospital and they arrested Taylor. Taylor was charged with capital murder for the murder of Reagan, and she was also eventually charged with capital murder in the kidnapping of baby Braxlynn Sage. Braxlynn was 7 pounds and 18.5 inches long when she was kidnapped and murdered by Taylor Parker. Reagan's mom, Jessica, posted a photo and announced her daughter and granddaughter's death on social media the very next day. Her family also did a media interview a few days later. Taylor's interviews over the next few days were anything but normal. Taylor said that she and Reagan had gotten into an argument where she shoved Reagan to the ground, and Taylor said that Reagan was so injured that she actually begged for Taylor to deliver her baby because she knew that she was going to die. Taylor said Reagan begged her to take her baby, saying, "Get her out of me, get her out of me." When police asked Taylor how she got the scalpel that she used, she said that she had it in her medical kit that she used on her dogs when she used to take them hog hunting. But she said that she laid the scalpel down after taking the baby out. However, during Reagan's autopsy, the scalpel was found broken inside Reagan's neck. She told the detective, "I remember taking the baby out of the sack. She wasn't breathing. I remember hitting her on the back and a bunch of fluid came out. Reagan yelled to me, 'Go.'" Trying to sound like some sort of hero, I guess. Like Reagan was begging for her to save her baby's life. This is a very interesting spin. However, that part may have happened. It's certainly not from just a shove to the ground, but one scenario could be that after Taylor had begun to do what she was doing and the baby's out and Reagan finds out the baby's not breathing, it could be that Reagan did tell Taylor to go to save her baby's life. She knew she was dying and those were her dying words. I can only hope that's not the case, and that poor Reagan was not alive during the removal of her baby. Not only the amount of pain that she would have physically felt having her uterus removed, and perhaps even more painful, watching her baby being taken from her. Taylor then explains that she laid the baby on the floor and that she doesn't remember stabbing Reagan. She does admit she was the only one there. The detective said, "I'm gonna go with you did stab her. You stabbed her." The scalpel was found broken off in her neck. Taylor said that the reason that she went over to Reagan's house to begin with was because Reagan invited her. Reagan was actually worried about Taylor and the headaches and blackouts that Taylor had been having. Reagan, allegedly, according to Taylor, offered Taylor to come to her home and rest. According to Taylor, she had a migraine before going to Reagan's home, where she blacked out and woke up in a funeral parking lot. Taylor said that when she arrived arrived at Reagan's home, Reagan came out to the driveway to meet her and grabbed her in a caring manner, but for some reason, Taylor felt that it was aggressive and Taylor freaked out. Taylor said, "That's when she scratched me and I began going in and out. Reagan began hollering at me, 'You need to wake the F up.'" I think she's trying to kind of say she was in a blackout when this happened. Taylor said she told Reagan that she needed to get away from her because something was wrong, but Reagan would not let her go. And that's when they started shoving each other, and one thing led to another. Obviously, the police didn't believe Taylor, and neither do I. What about you? The police knew that Reagan's phone would have some answers. They would be able to see the text exchanges between she and Taylor and learn why she was over there to begin with, or what she was telling the truth about. But Reagan's phone has never been found. One of the saddest things in all of this, in my opinion, is that little 3-year-old Kinley, Reagan's first daughter, was in the house when this whole massacre unfolded, right in her own living room. Taylor said that Kinley came out at one point and that Taylor screamed at her to go back in her room. As I said earlier, Kinley was found hiding under a blanket, and I can't imagine the terror that this little girl must have felt. I don't know what she saw when she first came out of her room, but there's not a doubt in my mind that she heard the entire thing. The police also asked Taylor about the bomb threat because at this point, they had found out that it was, in fact, Taylor who called in that bomb threat, and that she used a voice-changing app in order to sound like a man when she made the call. Taylor refused to admit it, though, which the detective almost found laughable. He said, "You can admit to brutally killing a woman and stealing her baby out of her womb, but you can't admit to calling in a fake bomb threat?" So Taylor Parker's trial just ended at the beginning of this month, October 3rd. Actually. And many more things came to light in the trial. Now, I wanted to do this case 6 months ago. I'm actually glad that I waited because most of this stuff would have been only alleged, which we now have proof that it did in fact happen. Some other things that came to light in the trial, first and foremost, is that Taylor made up everything, which I think we already knew. Finances, the people, the emails, and pretty much everything else that she ever spoke about, including her pregnancy. She had gone to great lengths planning all of this, even looking up things on a website called fakeababy.com. Can you believe some of these sites exist? Where she was able to see fake pregnancy bellies and get all sorts of tips and tricks on how to get people to believe that she was pregnant when she wasn't. She even bought a new pregnancy belly right around the time that those maternity photos were posted on Facebook. I think one of the biggest questions here is that how did Wade not know that Taylor was faking a pregnancy? And I'm not calling him out because, in my opinion, I don't believe that he knew that she was faking it. But how? In the entire 9.5 months that Taylor had claimed to be pregnant, how had Wade never seen her without clothes on? Had he never asked to feel the baby kick or to hear the baby's heartbeat? I'm sure any question that Wade had, Taylor probably had an answer to. I'm sure she also possibly told them, as far as intimacy goes, that she couldn't be intimate during her pregnancy because of some medical reason, because that can happen. And also, Wade did admit that he wasn't in love with Taylor. So it is possible that he wasn't interested in being intimate with her. You know, he wasn't seeing her in that way. So it wasn't like they were in love, you know what I'm saying? So it is possible that they went that entire time not being very intimate. Many people have it out for Wade, but I consider Wade to be another victim in this case. Information about Taylor's relationship with her ex-husband, Hunter, has also come to light during the trial. Hunter had claimed that Taylor had faked seizures, medical problems, and all sorts of illnesses throughout her pregnancy in order to keep Hunter with her. He also said that she had insisted that they have a baby together, even though she had had a hysterectomy. She told Hunter that they could hire a surrogate and that her grandmother, who's very wealthy, would pay for the surrogate in cash. She even showed a photo of a man, allegedly named Tim Hightower, with a duffel bag full of cash. But as you can probably imagine, at this point, that cash exchange never happened. Taylor's explanation for why that one didn't work out was because Tim had gotten to an accident on the way to drop the money off, and that the paramedics driving the ambulance stole the duffel bag full of cash. I mean, this woman. After their divorce, Taylor didn't stop. She told friends that she and Hunter actually did hire a surrogate, but that Hunter cheated on her with that surrogate. And apparently, she was so desperate for a baby that she actually offered two friends of hers $100,000 each if they would carry a baby for her. Both declined, thank goodness. On September 15th of 2020 was when her internet searches soared more than ever. She was watching videos of births and C-sections and how to perform them, basically gaining information about deliveries and how to do them, what would happen, and all of that. During the trial, she was pretty stoic. She showed no emotion, no remorse. She only appeared to be crying at one point, and that was after her lawyer had asked for a recess, so I'm not sure what was said during that recess. Something upset her. I highly doubt it had anything to do with her being sorry. It also came out that while Taylor was sitting outside on that park bench at the clinic that day when she had her breakdown and rescheduled, that she was actually watching women get into their vehicles and taking down their license plate numbers. And remember the night before the murder where Taylor went to Reagan's home? Well, that night she went home and she made 5 separate calls to Curtin County Hospital. She spent the rest of the night and into the wee hours of the next morning looking up C-section videos and how to perform them. She also looked up birth at 35 weeks. After being up all night, Taylor left her house at 5:56 a.m. The medical examiner concluded that Reagan likely died between 7:46 a.m. and 9:14 a.m. Both Taylor's and Reagan's phones moved away from the Hancock's home at that time. Other testimony on the prosecution side was from doctors and witnesses, from Wade's mom, Connie, Wade himself, and a clinic worker from the very first clinic who Taylor actually invited to her gender reveal. This clinic worker, unfortunately, was unable to notify or say anything due to HIPAA privacy practices, but she knew that Taylor was faking her pregnancy the entire time. I think there should be certain times where HIPAA cannot be used. I do realize that it's not every day that a woman who fakes their pregnancy actually goes out and murders someone to steal their baby, but because this is something that is now kind of a growing epidemic, I feel like if a father petitions a doctor's office for proof that the woman who claims to be carrying his child, he should have every right to know whether or not that's true. That's it. You know, they don't have to give out details. They don't have to give out anything other than a yes or a no. I feel like that's at least fair. I'm kind of sick of people not taking men into account when it comes to pregnancy. Just because they're not the ones to carry the child, that doesn't mean that that's still not just as much their child. Of course, I'm not naive to the fact that some women don't want their partner to know that they are pregnant for certain reasons. And yes, they should absolutely have the right to keep that from that person for certain reasons, such as IPV issues or custody issues or anything. I don't know, you guys. If I sat here and tried to figure all of these things out, I would never get anywhere. And you'd never watch my videos because they would just be me banging my head against a wall trying to figure out how to make these crimes make sense. Wade also did admit during the trial that Taylor had all the paperwork and documents and excuses for everything, and he had no choice but to believe her. I mean, aside from assaulting her, right, and ripping up her shirt to see if her belly was real or not, what else could he have done? I do believe that if Wade had felt differently about Taylor, like he was actually in love with her, he would have known. He would have figured it out. But because at this point, he was really only with her because she was having his baby, they probably didn't see a lot of each other. And I can't imagine that they were very close in much of any way. The defense came up with some ridiculous BS, in my opinion. They tried to have the capital murder charge dropped, saying that the fetus can't be kidnapped because it's not yet been born. And it's not considered alive until it's born alive. But remember, Braxlynn was born, Taylor delivered her and then removed her from the home and drove off with her. That's kidnapping. If it's considered kidnapping, then the baby, it's a kid, it's alive, it's considered real. Right? Obviously, that request to drop the capital murder charge was denied by the judge. The defense also tried to paint the picture of Wade, knowing this entire time that Taylor wasn't pregnant, and tried to bring him in on these charges as well. Their reasoning for this was because Wade had assisted in hog births and that he would know whether or not a woman was pregnant, which in my opinion is a bunch of hogwash. In the end, Taylor's defense team never called one character witness for Taylor. If you watched any trials, that speaks volumes. They couldn't find one person to say anything that might possibly sway the jury that Taylor was not a horrible, sociopathic person that was portrayed in court by prosecution. Only 1 hour into deliberation, the jury had made their decision to charge Taylor Renee Parker with capital murder. Taylor didn't even as much as flinch during the reading of the verdict. On October 12th, a deliberation began to decide whether or not Taylor should get the death penalty. I don't know about you guys, but I don't see any other justice in this case but the death penalty. This sorry, pathetic, disgusting excuse of a woman should never be around people. I just want to say something because I've spoken out about the death penalty before. There is something that I think a lot of people don't understand necessarily about life in prison. Laws are always changing. There are certain laws that get passed that end up setting certain criminals who have received life in prison an option to either get another trial or to have some other hearing to end up getting out on some type of technicality. There are certain people that are a danger to the public, and they should never have a chance, no matter what, to ever get out again. If there's any chance of Taylor Parker being set free to the public, then I'm terrified. This was beyond cold, calculated, and brutal, and savage. This woman is incapable of telling the truth. She is very good at manipulation and deception. She has also proven that not only can she take someone's life with no regard for anyone but herself, but that she can do it in such a horrific manner and show zero remorse. After news about Reagan's murder hit mainstream media, there were a few other women who came forward and said that Taylor had tried to get close to them during their pregnancies as well. If they're telling the truth, then for one, they dodged a bullet, and for two, there is no telling what Taylor would do for another chance. Is Taylor Parker a psychopath, or is she just an extreme sociopath? Statistics show that women who commit this type of crime, in particular, usually do not have psychopathic tendencies. They are just selfish, manipulative women who are desperate to have a child, but not to love the child and care for the child, to fill a void within themselves. More often than not, these crimes are committed as desperate attempts to keep a partner. It has nothing to do with a mother's love for a child. Taylor didn't even have custody of her own 2 children. Clearly, an overdrive of maternal instinct was not her motive for murder. The medical examiner out of Dallas, Texas, testified about the autopsy that he performed on baby Braxlynn, and he ruled the death a homicide due to the traumatic extraction from the uterus with both sharp and blunt force injuries. The medical examiner said that portions of Reagan's fingernail was found in the placenta, which could indicate, and probably does in my opinion, that Reagan was still alive when her baby was removed. He also testified that the baby was a healthy fetus and that she would have survived had her mother not been the victim of several blunt force hits and cut from the womb. An OBGYN by the name of Dr. Christopher Mason, who was Taylor's former employer, also testified that being at 35 weeks gestation, little Braxlynn was able to hear loud noises such as yelling, and she was able to experience pain. Dr. Hastings, the medical examiner, explained to the jury that there was hemorrhaging at the top of the baby's scalp, which could have been caused either by her head being struck or it could have happened when Reagan was punched or kicked. Hastings also found bruising to the placenta and umbilical cord, and he said that could have happened from being pulled or squeezed, maybe from the knife. Other witnesses that were called to the stand to testify were corrections officers from the jail Taylor has been held in for the last 2 years. The corrections officers, nor anyone else from the jail, have sensed remorse in Taylor for any of her crimes. And not only that, but they have expressed that Taylor is still manipulating and even maintains power in jail. For instance, an officer testified, quote, "She has a demeanor to her where she's better than others and expects others to move out of the way, and oftentimes they do." Unquote. It was said that she believes the rules do not apply to her and that she's always breaking rules, and for some reason, she's never punished for it. She spends her time in jail reading books such as Den of Vipers, passing letters around, and even maintaining relationships with other inmates in the male section of the jail. She has also been overheard saying, "The only thing I'm guilty of is faking a pregnancy." There were also 2 confession letters, as well as miscellaneous writings that included similar Taylor-esque type dramatics. For example, in one confession, she talked about how she was targeted for her money by gang members who drugged and kidnapped her from the side of the road and took her to Reagan's house, where she woke up to find that Reagan had been severely beaten and that Reagan had begged Taylor to take the baby out of her dying body to save her. The second confession letter was basically the same, except this time she embellished even more, including street names for these gang members that allegedly did this, such as J-Dog, Doughboy, and Kodiak. One thing that Taylor said in these letters that makes me absolutely sick to my stomach is that as she was savagely attacking Reagan, 3-year-old Kinley came out. Taylor heard her say mommy and that Reagan yelled for her to run and call daddy. I believe that. I believe that happened. There was always some truth into some of Taylor's drastic, over-the-top stories, and I believe that this is one of those truths, and it is nauseating. There's no telling what really happened in its entirety, but what do you guys think? What do you think about Taylor Parker? Do you think she deserves the death penalty? Do you think she's a budding psychopath, or do you think she's just severely disturbed, a woman intent on getting what she wants at all costs? Please feel free to comment your thoughts, and there's nothing to like within this video, but if you like the way that I presented it to you and you feel that you got all the information that you were seeking about this case, please go ahead and leave a like. Also, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you're notified of every video every time I put one out. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys so much again, and please have a great week.